Hello again, it's Noob, and I'm very, very excited to show this off. This is actually the Generation 3, I think I've got the Gen 1 somewhere, disc detainer pick from RWB Custom Picks over on Instagram. For full disclosure, this was sent to me for the purposes of review and to keep. It's not a paid review, all thoughts my own. The video isn't shared beforehand to RWB Custom Picks. If you want one of these, I just have to say up front that you have to go message RWB Custom Picks over on Instagram or on Facebook or by email. I'll leave all the contact details below in the description as I normally do. Right, so what do we have here? Well, we have the Generation 3 disc detainer pick here, and this has been set up for anchor lass locks. Why? Because, well, that's the lock that I finished on when I was doing the picking segments of this video, so it's set up for that. But that isn't the only tip that you can get for this, so that's really nice. But can we just appreciate the machining on this? This is absolutely lovely, isn't it? It's made from 303 stainless steel, which is a marked step up from your kind of 316, 304 stuff. This is really nice stainless. And look at the markings here. These are like the spacers. So you can see that you got your disc spacer markings here, and one side is 2mm per spacing. On the other side, you'll see them a little closer together. These are 1.6mm, and that's good for most of the disc detainer locks. Obviously, there'll be ones which have a very unique spacing, but you can normally use these as a guide nevertheless. On the actual I like to call it the picking handle, but it's not actually the case. This can be set up to be front or rear tensioning, and I'll show you that in a second. But yeah, if we go with, this is at least the picking handle right now, you see that it's actually got little markings here as well. So you've got your disc spacing, but you've also got your disc rotation markings there to go against. I really like this. It's almost like a space age design. I quite like those little dimples there. It's just a nice design, which I hadn't really considered. It comes as standard with just some grooves, radial grooves here, put around the turning bits either end, or don't know what it's called, the handle and the tension, but the tension or the handle, depending which way you look at it. But you've also got this tensioning ring, which you can put on using this hex key, so you can put that on. Now, for standard cheap front tensioning disc detainer locks, I would actually use this to get some nice tension. But for the most part, you find that you just don't need that level of torque. And if you are using this to tension the lock and you over tension, then you're going to put more force on the pick tip. And, you know, these are extremely well made picking tips, but they're still only metal, and so if you really abuse them, you could damage that tip. So I would use the tensioning ring with some caution and experience to make sure you don't like crank up the tension, because a lot of disc detainer locks don't need that much tension, but nevertheless you do have this tensioning ring as an option. And I did find out that you can actually, just need to take this off for a second. I did find out you can slide it over the other end as well, should you be, I know, rear tensioning and you want this to go on here, so you can put that on there and provide a bit more torque. But again, go with care. A lot of these disc detainer locks need a gentle touch. They don't need a lot of torque, but I have found on cheaper disc detainer locks, this is absolutely necessary. So yeah, this is a little aluminium ring, so it's a lot lighter, which I think is good too, because you don't want to add unnecessary weight to a pick like this, which is already made out of a good quality stainless steel. So that's the anchor lass tip. We'll look at that in later on in the video. But what else do you get? Well, we have the rear tensioning tip here. And I'll show how that fits a bit later. This is very useful in the ABUS Plus locks, plus most other disc detainer locks as well, because they nearly all rear tension. We also have our front tensioning tip. So this is the first one we'll look at in terms of picking videos, and you'll see they've got these nice long prongs here. That's really useful for when you have locks with quite a deep set first disc to tension off, especially when you've got a spinner there as well. So these nice long prongs, really very useful for that. Now you also might find that you have a couple of other things in the kit depending on what you order. You have an Abloy Classic and Abloy Sentry make your own tips. So these are hardened steel, and you really need to know what you're doing to make your own tips, but he does actually sell these sort of blanks if you like. I'm not going to be making the tips on this video because I don't know if I've got the skills or patience to do so, but it's nice to know that you can get these blanks for this disc pick body if you are so inclined to make your own tool tips. The rear section of this does take 1.5mm and 4mm, which is that ejectors. You'll see that it actually steps down, which means that it will take the 1.5mm ejector tips, if you like, and also up to 4mm in there as well. Yeah, we've got our front tensioning tip, we've got our rear tensioning tip, and the anchor last tip. I will demonstrate all three of those quickly so you can see them in use and being picked. So we'll start out with a front tensioning tip installed into the lock, then we'll change it out for the rear tensioning tip, and then I will go on to a shortened video of me picking the anchor last because it is a bit harder lock and it takes a little bit of time. I'll do a separate video actually on the picking, but you'll see that it is possible to pick that lock with this. So let's give this girder lock a try. Should work very nice and smoothly. Let's lock it back up. We're good to go. Right, so first things first is we will pop the tip in and just pop that all the way down the keyway. Then I'll try to grab the first disc and tension off that and hold that nice and still using that ring. Now, got to find that first disc. Well, it's actually the last disc, wherever that is. Yeah, I got it. It's about here. So then we can give that a turn. It binds them back to front. I don't know why. Nice and stiff, but I think we picked it to that position. I felt the core move a little bit. Then they got the next disc, a bit stiff, so I can just release the tension a bit. And I got a nice click out of that. Next disc, again release some of that tension because it is quite stiff. I don't know why on this lock in particular. Maybe it just needs a little bit of lubrication. Stay on that disc. I think we got it. Okay, next disc. And that's all the way down there. That's good. Next disc. That felt okay. Next disc. And that felt good too. So let me just test these discs just to check that they are set. They feel good so far. Not so sure of these ones at the back, but I'll give them a little nudge. That feels okay. What about this one? That feels okay too. And then so we can tension off that last disc if I can get onto it. And that is a 0 disc. So if we have picked everything, we could turn this back. Oh. And get the lock open. There we go. So just using that technique where the first disc isn't actually a 0 disc, it doesn't get picked all the way. It's actually got a small, we're tensioning off this disc position here on the key. I'll pull that up and focus on it for you. You can see. So this is actually the disc here, that position, that cut on the key, representative of where we're tensioning off. So we just need to sort of turn that back to get it set. And here we are now in the rear tensioning configuration. We have our rear tensioning tip, which is formerly our picking tip, and the picking tip, which is formerly where the tension tip would be. You can of course shorten the length of this tensioning tip as you wish. It's worth spending the time to set this up, because obviously you want to set it up so you just have enough room to allow the pick tip to slide up and down, but not too much length that it's a little bit more flexible, which reduces feedback. So definitely spend your time setting this up before you start picking your lock. But yeah, other than that, it actually was pretty easy to do. Most standard disc detainer locks can be rear tensioned. In fact, this lock in particular should really be rear tensioned, because this has a 0 disc. Nearly all, not all, but nearly all disc detainer locks of this configuration actually have a 0 disc right at the end, so you tension off that. Now we have our rear tension set up. Let's pick this clear plastic padlock. I'm just going to pop the tip down and you'll see it spin around at the back. So what I'll do is, just like you would at the front, you just move your tension tip back to the first disc position and keep that under tension like that. You might even be able to see through here how there's a little tab pushing against the core, and that's providing tension. So now I can put my tip down the lock like this, all the way to the back, and try to pick up the next disc in a row. And then the next disc is binding, so that felt good. Next disc, that's also binding, seems to be binding back to front very nicely. That felt good. Next disc in a row, is that binding? It is. Next disc. Try and get onto it. Yeah, got it. And that's gave me a nice positive click. Try to get onto the next disc. Got it, it's binding. And the last disc, oh, got it. And we have the open. So you can see how you can definitely use rear tension on locks which can be front tensioned as well. So I've now changed this over to the anchor lass tip, which is very, very cool. And this differs a bit from other tension tips because of that angle. Can you see that angle here and here? It's like a corner missing. Why? Well, if you look at the keyway, you can just about make out down there that there is a profiled keyway, and also on the key you'll see that there is a side sort of filed off. Well, it's not really filed off, is it? It's just made that way, but you can see that cut out on the key. So a standard tip won't go in because, you know, it'll be square profile and that corner just won't work, and the pick tip itself, again being sort of square, won't work. So this is a anchor lass tension and picking tip. Now, because this lock takes a few minutes to pick, it's got some false gates in it, I will just cut to the last minute or so of me picking this lock to show that this does actually work. And there will probably be a picking video of this on my channel at some point soon, probably using this pick because it's the only anchor lass tip that I own. This tends to bind back to front, so let's give this a turn. And that's gone all the way. Okay, next disc, 10.
3 weeks later.
I'm really just trying to see if I've got everything in an actual gate that it should be. That feels good. Oh, and yeah, we got the open. Look at that. So the discs, I think 7 and 8 were just a little bit off. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed those demos. You can clearly see that this is very, very functional. Pros and cons, things I like, those kind of things. Well, pros, lots of pros. All of these tips that are already made up work absolutely brilliantly. They're all very, very good. The rear tensioning tip is a little harder to use than front tensioning if you've ever used a rear tensioning tip, just because of the sort of extra length here. it just makes the feedback a little more subtle, and you have to know what you're doing. So reattentioning those extra high security locks can be a little trickier, but that's not the tool's fault. That's just the way it is. So yeah, the tips all machined and made genuinely just so nicely. And just the look of this thing, it's so nice. This Gen 3, I thought the Gen 1 was really nice, but this Gen 3, everything about it just works so nicely. It feels comfortable. The markings are really nice. It takes a little bit of getting used to these dimples as opposed to like marks going across, but once you have got that down, it just makes sense. It really does. It really does work, and yeah, I kind of like it, and I love the way it looks. It's machined so nicely as well. I can't really speak on these custom tips. If you know what you're doing with these, you'll recognize what these are about and what they're for, and you may be interested in these, and I'll tell you the prices of those in a second. So in terms of pros, just the quality of the machining, the materials, the finish, the functionality of the tips, I mean, it's all there in spades. It really is lovely. This tensioning ring, I'm so glad it's made out of aluminium, something a bit lighter than this. And that is the only tiny thing which I'd say is not really a negative, because I don't know how else I would make this, but it is a little bit on the heavy side because it's made entirely of this CNC machined 303 stainless steel. The dimensions are perfect, and I'm not sure I'd want it to be made out of anything else, but no, just by the nature of it being, it is a little bit heavy. Perfectly usable, just a little bit heavy. But other than that, I genuinely can't think of anything to say bad about this. It's a genuinely nice professional level disc detainer pick. It's obviously small batch. It's not going to be as cheap as something made in the thousands. But, you know, I think that the quality of this kind of thing shows. You know, if you spend a little more, you get a better quality piece of equipment. As a set, the front, the rear, and the anchor lass, I think that's a really nice, triple set of front and rear tensioning tips. Again, with the option of creating your own for the RWB Century Classic. Yeah, it's just a really nice set. So anything I'd change about it? So, you know, all the pros, loads of pros. Cons, maybe the weight, but again, it doesn't really change the function of it. In terms of what I would change, really, I can't think of anything. Not massively. The only thing I could think of is to have these markings here also on the other side, just because it can be quite nice to, when you set it up and you realize you've actually got this the wrong side here, it'd be nice to have these markings just so you can see how far you're rotating. It really can help you just position yourself in the lock and know where you sort of are. So is it an essential change? No, if you set it up properly first time, you only need them on one side, but because I do make the odd mistake, it would be nice to have these replicated on the other side as well. So now for the burning question, what does this really beautiful small batch disc detainer pick cost? Well, the basic front tension pick set, so just this and the handle, is £85, and that includes UK shipping. The rear tension set, so if you wanted to add that on, would be £40. The anchor lass tip is £20. The Century and Classic make your own tips are £10 each if you're interested in those. So obviously the prices will change, and I would reach out to RWB Custom Picks and say what you want and see what they are able to offer you. But that is the sort of individual prices. The whole set like this, delivered in the UK, is around £165. All of which, when I think about it, is incredibly reasonable for small batch tools like this made so well. In my opinion, obviously everybody has their own budgets and needs, so that's just my opinion. So yeah, it's a really nice disc detainer set. I'd love to know what you think of this in the comments. Do you have the Gen 1 or the Gen 2 RWB Custom Picks disc detainer tool? What do you think? Do you like the new additions? Do you like these tips? Have you made your own Century or Classic tips from the make your own tips that RWB Custom Picks is able to offer as well? Anything like that, please drop all of that into the comments below. I do read them all, reply to as many as I can, and it's really great to share that information out with everybody else in the community as well. If you like this video, leave a like. It really helps me out, and if you think I deserve it, please hit that subscribe button as well. Other than that, I hope you stay safe, and I'll see you all next time.